It's Mark Yegge here, wealth architect and lifestyle investor. Let's take your life to the next level. Welcome to the Wealth Architect Podcast. Hey everybody, it's Mark Yegge. Welcome to another edition of the Wealth Architect Podcast. Glad you're here today. And we have a guest who has spent decades refining a very fast process of doing and learning. And this is right up my alley. He calls it mistake-based marketing. And he used it to achieve multiple software exits during the dot-com boom. And now he's achieving badly needed change in the massive water industry to help the most vital but threatened resource on the planet, and that is water. As a founding CEO of a public company, Riggs has found a completely novel way to rescue business owners faced with fast rising water bills and build a new investment market in the process. He's even begun to build water stable coins. His name is Riggs Eckelberry, and he's joining us today. Hi, Riggs.
Such a pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks for being here. And I want to hear how you got into the water business, because that's a major, detour, I guess, off of .com technology. Tell us.
Well, you're so right. Well, of course, I'm no stranger to water, having been a professional seaman back in the day. I actually, on my wall is a merchant mariner's license, and that was fascinating, except, really I became more interested in technology. How can technology transform the world? And so starting in the 80s, really, because my maritime adventures were in the 70s, I started a company in New York City, computerizing companies for the first time. And that was really when everybody was moving off of the old bear down hard, safeguard ledgers, and into these various kinds of PCs, et cetera. There was a lot of change happening. Sure. I loved it. But ultimately, what really I fell in love with was the 90s with the .com, because computers started being used more for communicating than computing, right? So in addition to being a glorified calculator, they were also a way for people like you and me right now, thanks to my friends at Zoom and WebEx, it created this whole world where we're connected, and that's only part of all the amazing changes we've seen. And so the .com for me was a great time because it was nonstop. Change is good, new stuff coming on. How do we apply it? For example, I was involved with a startup that was doing the early e-commerce recommendation stuff, like on the fly, figuring out what people liked and recommending it on pages and stuff like that. So a mix of technology and marketing. And whereas prior to the 90s, I'd really been more either an entrepreneur or working in the nonprofit space, or literally a ship captain. Starting in 95, I really started going up the ladder to the corporate world. I recognized that in order to really make a difference, I had to get to the C-level. And even though my college was a C, I still knew that I needed to acclimate to the corporate world. And that's what I did for 10 years, and got to the mid 2000s. And like all number twos, I thought I could be a better number one. Yeah. So long story short is I went to a fund that I liked very much. They're good friends to this day. And I said, I think I could be a good CEO. I had just helped a company go onto the NASDAQ as the number two, the president and COO. That was I kind of hit my ceiling. And they said, yeah, we think you could be, but we're not doing tech anymore. We're doing green. And specifically, we think algae could make an amazing biofuel.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, you're absolutely right. And anyway, I've got a inventor brother who had a technology that came out of Japan. And long story short is we started a company called Origin Oil. Algae being the original oil. It wasn't dinosaurs, it was algae.
I know that. I wish everybody else would quit talking about fossil fuels, but yeah, you're right.
I mean, algae, it was fossilized algae in a way, but it's a completely different story. But what was great about it was like a who knew, and I was the darling of media. Stuart Varney, I'll call you Algae Man. It was a lot of fun. And that was great until fracking hit. And fracking then took the price of oil from about 100 plus, 120 a barrel down to less than 50. And that was it. All of a sudden, we were I had one last debate on Bloomberg with Jim Rogers, and then we were done because it turned into a science experiment at that point. And we were built to be a public company from day one. So we were founded in 2007. We were trading by April 2008 as a penny stock and raising money from investors like you and me, regular investors who were looking for leverage. Penny stocks can do very, very well. Of course, so many of them, it's a roll of the dice. And it's become especially more so. Like today, I would never go in the over-the-counter market. I think it's a wreck. But what we're doing now is more like it, which I'll talk about in a sec. But what happened then is when we realized that algae was not a play, and we didn't want to make supplements, and we didn't want to get into that game, we managed to pivot our technology from extracting algae from water to extracting sewage from water, and very, very similar approach. And we rebranded it as OriginClear, and it was around 2014. And what followed was a very difficult period of, I could not, I mean, I would have been better off streaking through Times Square. I would have been more noticed because the water industry is so technology phobic. They're like, no, we're good. We got all the stuff we need. We're just running this thing. And as a result, it was very hard to be a pure technology play. It would take literally, as the industry was telling us, it would take 12 to 15 years to find adoption, and we just weren't ready for that. So that's when I had my epiphany. I read a very important Lux Research study in early 2016 that said decentralized water is a thing, that more and more businesses are doing their own water treatment. Why? Infrastructure falling apart, water rates taking off like crazy, and ultimately our grid is built in such a way that you can never recycle water unless you treat it yourself. You send it to the city, it's gone. And the cities, there's a reason why we have less than 1% recycling in this country, because our grid is built on this, the waste model. Take a look at, LA's river structure, which is all these concrete, dry, you saw them in Greece. And the whole purpose was get all that fresh water into the ocean as fast as possible, which was the attitude back in the pre-war and even sometime after post-war. So the new philosophy, of course, is we have to preserve our water. There's waste, there's a lack of recycling, and it has a lot to do with the fact that the cities are way overwhelmed. There's just too much. They have too much unfunded mandates. The EPA is telling them to do more and more. Rightly so. I mean, the water's just lots of toxins. But the logical thing is make industry and agriculture treat their own water. Why not? Right now, I'm not talking about freshwater provision. I believe that should remain a governmental thing. Every attempt to privatize freshwater has been a disaster. But treating dirty water, which is a much harder job, needs to be in the hands of the people who make it dirty. And since industry and agriculture is 90% of all freshwater demand, it solves a lot of problems. And so we became very, very excited about decentralized water. I started building companies that could do that. And so let's see how the sequence was I bought a company that did these huge custom installations for like power plants and stuff. Then we created out of whole cloth one of these modular containerized water system, these pods that you could drop into a brewery and plug it in and you're up and running. And that is done very well, modular water. And then finally, during COVID, we came up with the idea of capital-free water treatment. Your business, you want to start treating your own water, well, just switch meters. You don't have to worry about, coming up with $1 million. Just switch meters from the city to the company Water on Demand. And companies love it, but investors love it because obviously we couldn't fund it for a long time with our own money. We had to create a vehicle, and we created something like the oil and gas master limited partnerships that are out there, where you know how investors, you can any investor can do it. It's slightly complicated, but you can do it. You can invest in a basket of energy properties that returns royalty and has all kinds of benefits. And we copied that for water. And people like the idea, first of all, of their investment being tied to an asset. These days, it's critical, I believe. Secondly, it's got a profit share return. And thirdly, it's water. It's not oil. And people like that. And you know, the big problem, Mark, that I run into as an everyday investor is, where do I put my money?
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know I should have put it all in Bitcoin back in 2010, but I didn't. So where do you know, like Ashton Kutcher put his money into, you know, for example, he was part of the Sequoia thing. So he got into Airbnb early. He made 157,000% on his money. You and I don't have that kind of access.
Yeah.
I mean, bless him. I mean, good for him. But how do we get in? Well, the minute we hear about something, it's already done. AI done, you know. So EV's done. Everything's done. And also mature commodities like oil and gas, like gold and so forth, are heavily manipulated. And so you'd think, for example, gold would be much higher than it is. I don't know why not, but I there's all this geopolitical stuff happening around it. So the and in Bitcoin, while it overall goes up, it still has these horrifying crashes, and it's got dark pools of money that control it. I mean, it's not a pretty picture. So what's beautiful about water is it's just coming out of monopoly. It's early. It's relatively stable. You know, there's more and more water needed all the time. Um, and it hasn't the pooch hasn't been screwed, as you might say. The big money hasn't really moved in. There's one unicorn so far that's doing the big pharma guys. But other than that, it's relatively early. And so people are keenly interested, and it's a really good way of getting an asset-based investment that generates the royalties. Now, what's the big difference between us and oil and gas? The oil and gas MLPs have big tax benefits. That was negotiated, you know, decades ago, and it's people have tried to widen it, and it's not working very well. So what we did instead is, okay, you don't get the tax benefits, but we're going to give you huge equity in this venture. You'll be a partner, and that has been working very well. Now,
so let me break in and ask you a question, because I'm a little fuzzy, which probably means that, you know, there's one or two people listening or watching that are a little fuzzy. So
sure.
You'll go into a factory, let's
Mhm.
just say, for example, and you'll put in this module or this modular unit, and instead of getting their water from the city or the municipality, they will create their own water from waste. How does it work? And then
okay.
who pays for it? Yeah, help me out with this part. Hey, it's Mark Yegge here to tell you about our cash flow machine trading program that's designed to teach you how to make safe, reliable income. Now, we shoot for 2 to 4% a month of income and growth in your portfolio. And we have courses to teach you how to do this yourself or inside a mastermind community. And the best part of that is it only takes about 20 minutes a week to implement. Now, while 2 to 4% a month doesn't sound like much, I show you exactly how we took my IRA from $111,000 to over $500,000 in just 19 months without huge risk. I'm not telling you this to brag, just to show you that you can do this too. So to learn more about this program, go to cashflowmachine.io. That's cashflowmachine.io, and you can learn more.
Incoming water, as I say, should continue to be from the city. Now, that's just a simple water pipe. It's easy to provide fresh water.
It's already there. Yeah.
Yeah, and you leave it. It's fine.
Yeah, got it.
Unless you have a really bad water problem, you can build a well, whatever. But most people don't. They rely on the existing water supply. But what they do is they then, once they use it, they reuse it.
Okay.
So they start treating it themselves, and they start getting more turns out of the water. What does that do? Number one, it reduces their water bill. Number two, it's relieves drought and helps the aquifer and so forth. Um, so it's a win-win.
I see.
And for the city, it takes the burden of treating that dirty water off of their plate, and that
Yeah.
is a big problem for them.
Another win.
Yep.
Yeah. So a couple of wins there. And then now from the investment side, you say that the industry doesn't have to buy it. You're going to put it in there, much like a power purchase agreement on a solar panel, something like that, maybe, where you provide the equipment and you get a royalty based on their metered usage. Am I correct? Something like
Exactly.
that. As
That's
much
very
runs through your system. They pay you, and it's a lesser amount that they would have to pay to the city. So everybody continues to win in all this, even the new investors who have capitalized that issue. Is that somewhat correct?
You got it exactly right. It becomes an investable vehicle.
I see. Okay. Now you were gonna go into the next step after the tax treatment of it. So
Well, I'm glad you stopped me to make that clear because many people, we get this all the time in social media. Do not privatize fresh water. We go, yes, we agree. We agree. It's the dirty water. And somehow, I don't know, Mark, but people don't have good awareness of dirty water. They flush the toilet, it goes away. They don't know. It's out of sight, out of mind. But
Right.
it's by far the biggest problem. It's what's polluting our aquifers. It's what's creating terrible problems with because it all comes back into the drinking water eventually, right?
Right.
So I'm glad you stopped me there. But we realized that we had to, as I was saying, the OTC has become, the penny stock market has become, it was kind of marginal a while ago. It's really become a hard one to raise real money in. And so we decided we need to get on the NASDAQ.
Okay.
Well, how do you get on the NASDAQ these days? Unless you're Sam Altman and you're willing to do all that. And the way to do it is to really, well, there's two ways. One is to crowdfund your way onto the NASDAQ, which is legit. It's a good way to go. Companies like Buildable have done well with that. I mean, sorry, Boxable. Nightscope was another one, robotics. And they literally got onto the NASDAQ with tons and tons of small investments, which I think is a wonderful thing. The other way to do it is to be acquired by a blank check company, a SPAC, special purpose acquisition company. And as you know, the SPAC market has basically, it's a bubble that's burst and there's a whole lot of blood in the streets over it. But there's a way that you can take advantage of that by basically taking over the sponsorship of a SPAC that has run out of gas.
Yeah.
And become the sponsor and propose yourself to be the target.
Yeah. Reverse mergers have been around for a long time, and it's a great way to back into a public offering and raise money for sure.
In fact, we're watching, DWAC happening right now.
Donald Trump's SPAC. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's legit. It's good. It works. It's relatively fast. My interest, one of the big problems is a SPAC will start out with $100 million in it, and then through redemptions, they'll end up with $5 million.
Right.
But what's valuable is the NASDAQ seat, right? That's the listing is what matters.
Yeah.
Because you can, we know because we're in the S4 process right now. It's a registered merger plus the NASDAQ application. Not easy to qualify, but once you're a NASDAQ, your access to capital is dramatically improved. And so water on demand as a major play to create CapEx-free water decentralization is going to be able to tap into much greater funds, especially since, remember, we continue to own all those machines.
Right.
So it's a fleet, and it creates a hard asset. But one of the things we feel very strongly about is we want to continue to work with everyday investors. These are the people who got us to the party, and they remain our ability to look at a deal and not be stuck with it, right? Like, well, I don't like that deal so much. And I've got an investor base I can fall back on. The other thing that we're doing is we're expanding out into true crowdfunding. So it's not just the accredited investor, it's everybody.
That was my next question: is who can afford this and who's available, to invest in this.
If you want the royalties directly, then you're going to be an accredited investor. That's
Got
how
it.
that works.
Okay, but if you want equity,
Right. So then in a pure equity play, OriginClear, we what we did was instead of making ourselves the SPAC target, we took all of our profit centers and packaged them into this new Water on Demand, achieved a valuation, combined valuation of $72 million in the merger, and basically our kid went off to law school, right? So we sent off Water on Demand to go on the NASDAQ, and we are currently the majority owner of Water on Demand. So OriginClear has that inherent value, but we've retained, basically, we're going into the company creation business.
Mhm.
We created 3 companies. Now, God and the SEC willing, we'll get onto the NASDAQ. That will be, I think, a tremendous milestone for us, and it will give us the credibility. And what is our superpower? It is working with the retail investor. That's what we do well. We have just amazing people who are, I mean, literally are co-creators of the company with me. Ken Berenger, AJ Fiquez, our CFO Prasad, COO Tom Marchisello. So we have a team that is just it's like a band of brothers. We need a couple sisters, but we have a heck of a team, and that is the ongoing OriginClear, which will be helping Water on Demand make it in the world, and also doing more company creation.
And so where are these products, where are your modules sourced? Do you make them yourself? So you bring them in from China? You got somebody making them somewhere or assembling them here? How does that work?
Well, one of our strengths during COVID, in fact, was the fact that we had local supply chain.
Got it.
We had some problem with some components like pumps, but in general, what we have is these giant polypropylene or polyethylene molded tanks that everything sits in. So the whole water system is packed in there. As a result, it's completely, it's weatherproof. It lasts 100 years. It's easily sourced out of multiple factories in the U.S. And in fact, the way we do these days is wherever they're spinning the mold is where we'll do the final assembly of the equipment.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then it'll just go from there on a semi to wherever it's going. We have 2 versions. One's above ground and one's below ground. And the difference is just aesthetic. Some people like it out of sight, out of mind. Some people don't mind it being on top of a pad. And then we have a big business also in pump stations. It turns out that there's a giant amount of water being wasted in our piping system. I was just reading a story. It's on my X feed right now about Pritchard, Alabama. They're losing up to 60% of their fresh water to faulty pipes, and it is a poor neighborhood. It's actually the poor neighborhoods of America that, like Flint, Michigan, that suffer the most because of antiquated infrastructure, et cetera. So there's this tremendous water waste. Well, this is water being paid for by somebody. And so our pump stations are, again, these high-density polyethylene shafts, very simple design at the pump at the bottom. But you'd be surprised, there's millions of them in America, and they're all made out of concrete, steel, or fiberglass, i.e. falling apart. And so we're doing a lot of on-site replacement, and that is an ongoing business of ours that happens to be really good for us. So modular water systems is booming. We started them in 2018. They turned profitable in 2021. And from 2021 to 2023, 2019 to 2023, they 7x'd their revenue. So just cranking. A wonderful team.
And you said profitable?
Uh-huh.
Nice.
Our operating units, now at the corporate level, we're unprofitable because we're developing this new water on demand thing. But the operating units have been cash flow positive for years, and that's kind of our philosophy. And so, these Progressive Water in McKinney, Texas, Modular Water, which is up in Virginia, but as I say, doing all this on-site manufacturing. They are well regarded, strong companies. And now we've added this fintech, which works kind of like the way GM Financial works for GM. It's much more profitable. It's, in fact, we don't need to build every machine. We'd rather not. We'd rather finance, get away from the low profit margin of building machines, which is like anything else that's brick and mortar, right? So we think that water on demand is going to accelerate because there's the classic inverted pyramid where at the very bottom you have the people we're servicing now, which is they have to have their own system. They're being fined or they're too far from the sewage and I got to have this thing. And they're paying cash. That's a good business. We're doing very well. But we believe that the pyramid widens to self-financing. Now it's the people for whom it could be good. They don't have to, but it would be a good idea. And it helps. They don't have to come up with a bunch of cash. So we think that's going to widen the market tremendously.
Why not go to like a Carlisle or somebody that can provide that project financing and have them do the financing of the units rather than going, it sounds onerous to go to a lot of individual investors to have them invest in these individual things rather than some big private equity financier company that can make this easy for you. Just curious.
Right. And no doubt we will do that. I mean, there's no question that once this gets serious, we are going to need real cash and we go to, for example, one of our competitors is financed by Morgan Stanley Infrastructure Partners, right?
Okay.
So that's completely legit. But what we like is we like being able to move really fast.
Sure.
And I've been around the VC world in that monthly meeting where they tell you what to do.
I totally get it. Some MBA that just graduated, 24 years old, thinks he's an expert on your business, telling you how to run it. Okay. Something like that.
And that's where we come back to this mistake-based marketing philosophy, right? Which is, I like to learn from mistakes and learn rapidly. And sometimes you end up going too fast for the people who finance you. I'm very lucky that the people that we started with back in 2007, they've supported us ever since, but not in a huge financial way, but wherever we needed it.
Yeah.
They are very laissez-faire, like Riggs, you own this. You're stuck with it. You're the operator.
Do it.
And I that's a good thing. So what I believe in is, Mark, I like adaptation, but at the same time, you got to have a compass. You got to know where you're going.
Yeah.
Right. So boom, 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 boom. But you got to have that idea of where you're going. And the other big thing that I learned in the last few years was the vital importance of a team. Too often in my life, personally, I've tended to be like the hero, you look back and nobody's following you. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
not so good. So I've learned to, team building, maintaining strategic direction, but maintaining this flexibility and working with the everyday investor, accredited or not, gives us that luxury.
That's great. I get it. So it's more of a ground floor opportunity for an investor. It's not institutionalized yet. So there's a lot of upside potential. Makes a lot of sense. And you're in, to me, the right business. I mean, water is a huge thing, especially in this country, but also in third world countries. So there's an unlimited amount of business, and maybe you are the next AI or Bitcoin. Who knows, right? We don't know yet, but maybe you do. Maybe tell us a little bit about where to find you, how people can find out more about your company, how to invest, those kinds of things. And by the way, it's not lost on me that you're sitting in Clearwater, Florida, in front of, I think, North Ward Elementary, which is, that's my old stomping ground. So I recognize that building, and it's funny. You're in Clearwater, Florida, and you're in the water business. So tell us a bit about how people could find out a bit more about you, Riggs.
I think, wasn't it because there was originally a creek that had fresh spring water? I think it's the origin of the word long ago, but I could be wrong.
I don't actually know the origin of my hometown. Yeah.
Anyway, we can have that conversation another time, and especially if you come visit. But we are OriginClear, one word, .com. Go to the site. Now, the first thing you're going to be invited to is my weekly briefings every Thursday night. I've done this, well, in Zoom. I've done it since the beginning, since January 2020, but long before that on audio only. And basically we completely debrief about the company, what's going on, what's happening, and I think we're unique in that respect for a public company. Weekly, up to date. So I strongly recommend that your viewers register for the CEO briefing. A lot of people can't make 8 p.m. on a Thursday night on the Eastern time, which is why we have replays. But the
Cool.
important thing is it's an important update, and we get the other execs, and we have a lot of healthy debate, and that's good. There's a green button for invest. Currently, it's literally this week or next week we'll be opening the preview, the test the waters for the. So you'll be able to, whether you're accredited or not, you'll be able to look at investing. Just go ahead to the site. And very quickly, you'll get a chance to talk to, it's still early enough that you can talk to my co-creator of Want on Demand with Ken Berenger, who's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
And he's one of the top execs of the company, and literally you will get a chance to talk to him. So it's a good opportunity to talk to somebody who's in on the creation of this. And we're also very interested in what people think. So
Right.
that's why these briefings are open. We take all the comments. And of course, we're on social, either as myself, Riggs Eck, or OriginClear, or now the new one, Water on Demand, which is just starting up. And that is going to be that new, we already have a ticker symbol reserved on NASDAQ, WODI. So that's going to be the new incoming thing.
I love it. Well, listen, thanks so much for bringing us up to date. This is quite a bit of a departure from what we normally do on the Wealth Architect podcast, but it's a welcome departure. So thank you for shedding your light, your wisdom on what's going on in the water business and how we can decentralize it. So Riggs Eckelberry, thank you so much for being here.
Mark, it's been a real pleasure, and thank you for giving me the time to talk about it.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been educational for me. And everybody else who's listening and watching, remember what I always say, never give up your power in your health, your wealth, or your time. Have a great day, everybody. See you next time. Take care.
You've been listening to the Wealth Architect Podcast with Mark Yegge. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Share and tell your friends. See you soon.